viewers, my name is Leopold Munende. Welcome to News in TV. With me today is none other than the Senator, Douglas Mwonzora. I'm having challenges with, I was actually asking my other senior comrades how to address the war MDC politicians, how to address Nelson Chamisa, how to address you, Senator. Are you still the Deputy International Relations? Is Chamisa still the MDC President?
Well, I'm no longer the Deputy Secretary for International Relations, of course, because the Gweru Congress was nullified by virtue of the Supreme Court decision. And the Supreme Court decision effectively meant that I was reinstated as the Secretary General for 3 to 4 months while we awaited the extraordinary Congress. So I am the Secretary General, having been confirmed by the Supreme Court as such. I'm Senator for Manicaland, but certainly I'm no longer a member of any standing committee of the old party.
So how do I address Nelson Chamisa in my stories from now on?
Well, you can address him the way he prefers to be addressed. It's up to him. I can only speak for myself, but for me, you can address me as Secretary General, you can address me as Senator, you can address me as Mkomadagi.
Thank you so much. And then my first question, I'll disregard this as the first question. My first question, when Nelson Chamisa and Mwonzora were appointed, there's a video in circulation where you seem to be accepting their appointments, saying they were legal. What changed along the way?
Well, first of all, you must understand that in that video, I am issuing a communique on behalf of the party. I am not saying anything personal about myself. What had happened is that the National Council had said, and against my advice, he had gone on to confirm the appointments as deputy presidents. I had advised Morgan Tsvangirai, the president then, of the legal challenges that were there. But the National Council went on anyway and endorsed that. And in that video, I am communicating the resolution of the National Council. When you are doing that, and in the position that I was holding, you rarely give anything personal. You don't say to the world that this is the resolution, but I disagreed. No. I was communicating the resolution of the National Council. It turns out that the resolution of the National Council was null and void, and this was confirmed by the court. In other words, whereas there had been a difference in opinion, a difference in interpretation, with me saying that it was unconstitutional and others saying it was constitutional, the majority went on to say it was constitutional. They were going nevertheless, but the position that I had taken, I and a few other people had taken, was vindicated by the High Court and by the Supreme Court in the Mashavira case.
So you did communicate to the late Morgan Tsvangirai that his decision was unconstitutional?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I've heard a lot of criticism from people who were saying, why didn't we know about it? Precisely that's the point. I gave advice to a president, and after giving advice to a president, you don't go outside and then seek to undermine him by saying that I have given him this advice. You see, and when you are communicating a decision of the party, you communicate the decision of the party and not your personal preferences.
And then have you talked to Nelson Chamisa?
No, since the Supreme Court judgment. Since the Supreme Court, I've not been able to talk to Advocate Chamisa, and I don't know what he thinks. But what I noticed after the Supreme Court is that whereas Tendai Biti had commented on the Supreme Court judgment before me, and I commented after him, it was me who was adjudged to be at fault for having commented on the Supreme Court. I was subjected to an avalanche of hate and a torrent of intolerance. And they were saying that I shouldn't have commented. But nobody is saying why they are saying BT should have commented. He commented a position. He had not, there had not been a standing committee meeting that he had set. He commented as soon as he left the courtroom, And I was asked in response to his comment, and I felt that his comment had been irresponsible and illegal. He had communicated something which was completely false. And he knew that it was false. And that was to say that the MDC alliance was a political party and was therefore not affected by the judgment. That was not true. He then said, well, the Congress that took place in Gweru was an MDC alliance Congress. Again, that was not true. And I communicated that this is not true. The MDC alliance is not a political party, but it is a group of political parties constituted in terms of the alliance agreement. And that the Gweru Congress was not an MDC alliance Congress, but an MDC Congress, is vindicated by what is now appearing on social media. Number one, the address by Tabitha Kumalo, reading the resolutions of that Congress in Gweru. She makes it clear that it is an MDC Congress. And then you go to the resolutions themselves. The resolutions themselves, if you Google them, they are very clear that they are resolutions of the 5th MDC Congress. Then you see, you go to the statement of the president, Nelson Chamisa, after the Gweru Congress. And he describes the Congress as it was, and very correctly, that it was the 5th MDC Congress. You go to a lot of things which show that this was an MDC Congress.
Senator, but you have to understand the confusion around all this, especially for the ordinary person. Here is a political party which amalgamated with other political parties, formed a coalition, the MDC Alliance. And then 2019, they go to Congress. They say they go to Congress. You say it was a totally different Congress. You take part in that Congress. You took part in it. You contested for the Secretary General post. And and Tendai Biti, Washman Ngube, they also took part. And from your point of view, you are saying they were not members of the MDC at that time.
Welshman Ngube dissolved his MDC immediately before Congress and then came to join our MDC. In terms of the law, he did not qualify to contest. He qualified as a member, having rejoined. Because in terms of the MDC Congress, you have to have been a member for a continuous period of 5 years. And he had left the party, formed his own party, then dissolved it immediately after the elections. So he qualified as a member, but he did not qualify for election of office. A special dispensation was given to him and Tendai Biti. Tendai Biti had left, I think the PDP split. Lucia Matibenga with the other group, Tendai Biti with the other group, and they participated in the Congress.
So their participation was legal.
The participation was illegal by virtue of the fact that they did not qualify for election into office. They qualified to attend Congress as delegates, because in terms of the Constitution, members of the national the national executive, members of the parliament are delegates to the Congress. And remember, Tendai had been elected as a member of parliament. He qualified as a delegate, but they did not qualify as candidates. And this is a point that Morgan Komichi tried to make, and he was totally ignored. Now, I took part in an MDC Congress, which was held in Gweru. And the resolutions of that Congress clearly spell out what Congress it was. It was the 5th MDC Congress. But the Supreme Court has now come and said we couldn't organize that because that was a faction Congress. The Congress by Thokozani Kupe and Blawayo was adjudged to have been a faction Congress. The Congress in Gweru was adjudged to have been a faction Congress, a faction of the MDC. And what the Supreme Court now has said is that together go and have an extraordinary Congress where you elect a leader of your choice. The Supreme Court has not given us a leader. The Supreme Court has not said go and vote for Mwonzora or Mudzuri or Komich. It has said, or Chamisa, it has said go and regularize your things and do your things according to law. In my respectful view, that is the correct approach to take, which is to abide by the decision of the court and regularize our situation.
Have you talked to Madam Kupe?
Yes, I have.
And how has she taken all this, all this which is happening at the present moment?
There's a tendency by many people to think that the court judgment favored Kupe 100%. No, it didn't. It dissolved her party, her group, and said that her responsibilities, she has to go back to the status quo as at 2014. That means that the vice president she had, the secretary general she had, the whole team stands dissolved. So to that extent, it is also prejudicial to her. But the attitude that Dr. Kupe took was the same attitude as the attitude taken by Morgan Komichi and the same attitude taken by Elias Mashavira. And that is to say that the highest court of the land had pronounced itself, and the most responsible thing to do as the MDC is to abide by the decision of the court. The reason for that is that the court here was adjudicating in a dispute between MDC and MDC. It was adjudicating between the Elias Mashavira as an aggrieved person, and he was saying, I did not have my chance to elect a president of my choice at an extraordinary Congress. You people, including myself, he had abrogated his rights. He was adjudged to be right by the High Court. He was then adjudged, confirmed to be correct by the Supreme Court. And instead of treating him with respect, I see my colleagues denigrating him about where he comes from, about his level of education, about his station in life, that he is poor and so on, as if poor people don't think, as if less privileged people do not have brains. Less privileged people have got rights and they have to be respected. And we are really faced with a moral issue here. A small man fights with a big man in the same party. The small man wins first time. The big man appeals. The small man goes along with him, duels with him in the Supreme Court. The small man wins. And what are we doing? We are saying we won't listen to that judgment because it favors the small man. For me, that is a big moral question. We must be slaves of our followers and not the other way around. And if you look at it, the structure of the MDC, the Mashaviras, they constitute the bulk of the officialdom of the MDC. He is the district organizing sector for Gokwe. And MDC has got 210 districts. So you have 210 such people. And he is a representative of their group. And he won. And we should celebrate that because here is a young man who dared speak truth to power. Instead of being vilified, instead of being called names, he has to be respected. Because it turns out that he was ahead of his time.
And then still on Mashavira, I have to ask this one, because I'm sure you have heard it too. Was Mashavira, who some in the media sector have described as the Gokwe village, was he your pawn?
No. Elias Mashavira is Elias Mashavira. And let me just give you a background. Elias Mashavira was one of the best friends of the late Lenmo Jongwe. And therefore, a friend of our the advocate Chamisa. He was a friend of Sengweni, Tapera Sengweni. So it was a group of youngsters who knew each other and who had political consciousness during that time. So they knew each other. And Elias Mashavira was very, very clear that he first, and this is now in retrospect, but I did not know of this until after the court case and after all these allegations. Elias Mashavira was very, very abhorred. He was very, very perturbed by the manner things happened as Morgan Tsvangirai lay in the morgue. He was very offended by that. And he thought that it was not right that in the middle of the funeral, people are holding national council meetings, national executive meetings, pronouncing this one a leader and this one this and so on. And he did not like that. And he then says that in September 2018, Advocate Chamisa made a number of decisions. One of the decisions was to ask the three mayors, the mayor of Masvingo, the mayor of Chegutu, and the mayor of Victoria Falls, to step down. These mayors had been elected by the electoral colleges validly and democratically. Mashavira didn't think that was right. Then number two, a number of appointments were made into the national executive and into the in parliament, the parliamentary committees and so on. And Mashavira says, according to his affidavit now, that he came across an opinion written by Advocate Matinenga that what the National Council had done was illegal, and he decided to take the matter to court. And I just want to say to people who think that people like Mashavira don't go to court, the bulk of the litigants in the High Court right now, the bulk of the litigants in the Magistrate Court right now, the bulk of the litigants in the Constitutional Court right now are not graduates. They are not business people. They are ordinary people. These form the bulk of our litigation system. So it is not correct, as a matter of fact, that people in his position don't go to court. But most importantly, he's no ordinary man even. He is a democratically elected secretary, organizing secretary of a district with, I think, it must have 8 to 9 wards, I think.
And then we move over to Madam Kupe again. You were part of the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance for quite some time. And then the Supreme Court has ordered that there be an extraordinary Congress within the next 3 or 4 months. Will Madam Kupe not punish you for having taken part in this alliance?
Well, let me start on the first part of your question. I was a member of the MDC alliance by virtue of having been a member of the MDC-T. The MDC-T was the member to the alliance, you see, because according to the alliance agreement, membership are not individuals, they are political parties. So in the MDC alliance, there are 7 members, which is the 7 political parties. So I was a member of a party member, or a member party, a member party of the alliance. The alliance does not have members like national executive members, provincial executive members, and so on. It has a political party as the member. So I was a member of the MDC T and so on. And it turns out, according to the judgment, a member of the faction of the MDC T, because the other MDC was with Dr. Kupe. But coming to whether Dr. Kupe will punish me or not, I don't think she will punish me for having been a member of the MDC, because that is what I am, and that is what I still am, and that's what the court said I am. Then number 2, that I've committed no offense. Number 3, we don't just punish people within the MDC. Just like that. We do not have this concept of one center of power. It's a disease that was creeping, but it's a disease that we are containing right now. MDC is an institution. MDC is not equal to the president. The president is a member of the National Council, National Executive, National Standing Committee of the MDC. He or she is not the MDC.
And then moving over, but we're still with Madam Kupe and this recent judgment. Love Momoyo, all these guys, you know them. They were honorable members of parliament at one point and party leaders. Love Momoyo and Abednego Bebe and others, let me put it that way, have distanced themselves from you. Some of them are saying we'll only take part in a united MDC. Some of them are saying at least Dr. Kupe and Advocate Nelson Chamisa should sit down and find themselves, find each other. How many people do you have from the original, the 2014 structures, who are and have shown interest in going this tough road with you?
Well, I want you to understand what these gentlemen are saying, especially Abednego Bebe and Love Moyo. They are not saying that we should not be members of the MDC. They are urging people to unite. And that is a moral issue. That is a sensible issue. It is not a good idea for people to break rank. That is why we have not split the party. What we are saying is that let's abide by our own constitution, number one. Number two, let's abide by the court judgment. We go to the extraordinary Congress. We elect a president according to the wishes of the members of the MDC. That president could well be Advocate Chamisa. It could be Abednego Bebe. It could be Love Momo. It could be Morgan Komich. It could be Douglas Mwonzora. It could be anybody. But let's elect a president according to the constitution, according to the court judgment. That's what we are saying. There is another group which is saying let's disregard the court order. And what Abednego Bebe and Love Momoyo are saying is that let's abide by the court order. Let's abide by the constitution. But let people not fight. Let people not spread hate language. And they are saying that they are very, very correct. It's not correct for my colleagues within the MDC to start calling names all sorts of names. Komich is a sellout, Mwonzora is a sellout. I think Professor Nube uses charlatan. I don't know what that means. Somebody used nincompoop and so on. Hate language. This is what Love More is saying. Exercise restraint in your disagreement. And I totally agree with him. We are one family. We are members of one political party. We have had a difference in interpreting a judgment. Instead of respecting that diversity, some people are saying we should take their interpretation. That is wrong. And we are not saying take our interpretation. We are saying let's follow our constitution, let's follow the court order, because now this is the Supreme Court. So I agree with those gentlemen that we must unite. We must, this is one party. We are not saying that we are going to have to go our own way and these ones go their own way. No, we are saying that let's follow the constitution. Let's follow the rule of law.
So how many, from the 2014 structures, how many have shown interest, have approached you, written to you, called you, just to say, no, gentlemen, let us please go for a congress, or let us have a meeting of some sort?
My brother, hundreds of people have written to me on WhatsApp. They've written to me, they phoned me to say the stance you are taking is correct. Because this stance is not personal. I am not saying to the MDC, get rid of this leader. Get rid of Nelson Chamisa. Get rid of Tendai Biti. Get rid of this one. Or Tabita Kumara. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying, let's go to the Congress and elect a person of the people's choice. Who can be either of those people? That's what I am saying. This is the message which apparently my detractors choose not to understand. Let's go to the Congress and let the people choose. What do we lose? There are a number of advantages, my brother, of following that court, the court case. Number one, it shows commitment to constitutionalism. Number two, it shows commitment to the rule of law. Number three, it gives confidence to the people of Zimbabwe that if one day MDC forms a government, that government will follow the national constitution. It will honor court judgments, including judgments against that government. Remember, Mugabe used it to disregard court judgments. You remember the SADC tribunal? They made a judgment regarding to land. Mugabe said to hell. The Zimbabwean courts made judgments regarding farms and so on. Mugabe said to hell. And that is the example we must never follow. And we must prove it right now. Number three, it is a big lesson to all political parties. A person does not cease to belong to your political party because they dared think differently. And we are courageous enough to voice that. They don't suddenly become ZANU-PF or sellouts or charlatans, whatever that means, or nincompoop or whatever that means, simply because they have thought differently. They don't become less loyal to the party, in the case of Morgan Komichi, because he has said something different. Morgan Komichi was the chief election agent for Morgan Tsvangirai in 2008. He went to jail for more than, I think, 6 months. Then he was the chief election agent for Morgan Tsvangirai again in 2013. Again, he went to jail after that ballot paper was discovered. Then he was the chief election agent for Advocate Chamisa in 2018. Now, you cannot make a person a chief election agent in a presidential election if you are not sure of the loyalty of that person. But many people confuse these loyalties. They confuse loyalty to the cause, loyalty to the party, with loyalty to a person or a person's idea. In fact, they confuse loyalty to a person and loyalty to a person's idea. I may be loyal to you as my friend, to say, my friend, I'll never sell you out. But if I see you beating your wife, I will not take your side. This is what Morgan Komichi is doing. He is saying, let's follow the Constitution. And we should do it in love, actually, and not this rage that we see, this hate, and all this name-calling. It is so regrettable.
You are saying that there won't be a split. You are not trying to split the opposition party, but is that not imminent? Is that not a reality which is on the ground now?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's too early to talk about that and to write the epitaph of the MDC. No, here is a party whose officials are disagreeing on something. And here is a party where there is a conflict between convenience and following the values of the party. One group is saying, let's follow the values of the party, let's follow the constitution of the party, let's follow court orders. The other party is saying, let's disregard. And they've been proven to be wrong, because the premise they were basing on was that there was a difference between the MDC and the MDC alliance, in the sense that the MDC alliance was a political party formed in Gweru. We now know that that is not true. We now know that there was no party called the MDC alliance formed in Gweru. Who has told us that? Advocate Nelson Chamisa, in his communique, has said that. The chairperson then, Tabita Kumalo, in her address, has said that the resolutions of the MDC Congress in Gweru speak to whose Congress it was. Now, that question is settled now. And I hope my friends within the MDC now understand that we were correct. Now, having understood that we were correct, we must all do the correct thing. And that is to obey court orders.
And then maybe still on the alliance, may you just clarify the alliance agreement and what it means to those in parliament? Who can recall them? Who cannot recall them? Are they safe?
Yes. Generally speaking, let me just say, generally, we want to assure all our members of parliament and all our councillors that there will be no retribution against them. There is no appetite on our part to victimize anyone. These are people elected by the people of Zimbabwe. And we must respect, and we do respect, the wishes of the people of Zimbabwe. So there is no victimization of members of parliament. I know, of course, that Charlton Wende has written to the speaker to recall Elias Mashavira, myself, and Morgan Komichi. He has no power to do so, of course. But again, it points to the mala fides of that. We are being recalled because we dared think differently. We dared express our own opinions. Now, the MDC alliance is constituted in terms of the alliance agreement. The alliance agreement makes it clear that the MDC, the alliance is not a political party, but a pre-election pact. And that pre-election pact has a duration. A political party has no duration. You form the MDC, you form ZANU-PF, you don't say, but ZANU-PF expires in 2023. No, you say you have formed the ZANU-PF, full stop. We have formed the MDC, full stop. But the alliance agreement has a period, and the period, it has two periods. The first period is if it forms a government, if one of the parties forms a government, then that government shall be a coalition government made up of the parties within the alliance. Now, you do not have a coalition of one party. You have a coalition of more than one party. Now, if Tendai Biti is correct, if Welshman Ngube is correct that it was one party, how come it will form a coalition government with itself? That points out that it was made up of the many political parties. But number two, I think clause 2 of the alliance agreement says identity of the parties, that the parties shall retain their independence and they shall exist as separate entities. Very, very clear. Clause 3 of the alliance agreement goes on to say the alliance principals shall agree on a quota of the MPs. So 210 of the 210 MPs, how many candidates are coming from MDCT, how many from Welshman Ngube's party, how many from Tendai Biti's party, and so on. And it goes on to say each political party shall select its own candidates based on its quota. So we did our own candidate selection based to fill our quota. Welshman Ngube did the same, Tendai Biti did the same. That is why, if you now go back to the press now, to the internet, you will find that Tendai Biti was the first to announce his 9 candidates. Tendai Biti did not announce 210 candidates. He announced 9 candidates because that was his quota. Welshman Ngube announced less than 20, I think, I'm not very sure there, but he did not announce 210. Now this, and then Morgan Komichi and myself, we then announced the balance. Ngaro Vume announced his, Brigadier Mtambara the same, ZANU Ndonga the same. So, and the alliance agreement says that each political party shall have its own whip, chief whip within the parliament and within the council. Now, anybody reading that knows that that cannot be a political party. I read Dr. Shumba's paper where he was trying to equate the MDC to the ANC. As you know, the ANC being an alliance of COSATU as well as the South African Communist Party. There's one basic difference. The basic difference is that the alliance agreement, the constitutive agreement, does not describe the alliance as a party, but a group of parties. It does not have a constitution. The ANC describes itself as a party, a political party, and it has no duration. And it has a constitution, which the alliance doesn't have. So there are two different entities. One is a political party and one is not.
So what happens to Tendai Biti's members of parliament since he dissolved his party?
Well, he didn't dissolve his party really, because his party exists. The PDP is being led by Lucia Matibeka. It exists. It has offices in the country. It has a leadership. It has a national executive, and they have been phoning also. So they are the authority over the members of parliament from their party. They are the authority. So I, for example, cannot write a letter to recall Honorable Tendai Biti. That's why when somebody put in a document purporting to be a document coming from me, and it had Tendai Biti as one of the people I was supposed to be recalling, I can't recall Tendai Biti because he's not a member of my party. I have no jurisdiction over him. Ipso facto, by that fact, Professor Walshman Ngube cannot recall Morgan Komichi or myself because we don't belong to his party. He has his party. He can recall people like Mshoriwa. I don't wish them that. Mshoriwa, Miriam Mushai, and so on, members of his party, he can deal with them. But members of the MDC are dealt with by the MDC leadership. Now, the question is who does that?
Yeah.
Is it Charlton Wende who writes that letter? Or is it Douglas Mwonzora? The Supreme Court nullifies the presidency of Nelson Chamisa and all the acts done by him. It therefore nullifies Gweru. It reinstates the leadership of 2014. And in that 2014 leadership, Charlton Wende is a leader. He was elected deputy treasurer, and I was elected secretary general. It is the secretary general who writes letters like that, and not the deputy treasurer. So Charlton Wende was acting basically like a person who did not read the judgment. Maybe it was the advice that he was getting. I appreciate that he's not legally trained, so his misapprehension of the law may be understandable. But he was acting on advice coming from professors, from lawyers of long standing, and this advice was not only wrong, it was poor.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Leo Munende. You are watching newzimbabwe.com's News in TV, our premier program, The Agenda. I'm with Senator Douglas Mwonzora. We are discussing the Supreme Court judgment. As we wind up, Senator, maybe one of my last questions: how are you dealing with the comments on social media?
Well, I know that on social media does not reflect the actual populace. I can have 20 accounts on the social media. And therefore, I see some of the comments are outright abuse. I do not have time for that. Some of the comments are thought-provoking. Genuine Zimbabweans thinking differently from the way I think. I respect those comments and try as much as I can to answer to them and so on, and to give them respect. And therefore, I want to thank people who are commenting on the social media regarding what their own opinion regarding this on this issue. But when it comes to hate language that is coming on social media, it is regrettable. I won't change my mind because there is hate. No amount of acrimony, no amount of rancor, no amount of hate can defeat an idea whose hour has come. The hour to follow the Constitution has come. The hour is now. I have seen a few people on social media, some of them educated people, now resorting to abuse and falsehoods, posting false information on social media, threatening people on social media. That's political extortion, and it is despicable. It is a despicable practice. I have made a decision not to engage them because they do not help anybody. Some of them are people who are supposed to know better, whom Zimbabweans look to for knowledge, but they've resorted to propaganda, to hate, they've resorted to abuse, and so on, to name calling. I saw a very hilarious, I think it was a cartoon of me as a little dog and being taken for a walk by Madame Coupe and so on. I am Douglas Mwonzora. I am a person who helped craft the constitution of your country. I am a real human being, not a dog. Now, when people dehumanize others and they give you names, they are preparing for something. They are preparing for violence against you, so that those people who commit violence against you are no longer beating a human being. They are beating a dog in their minds. They are no longer beating Douglas Mwonzora. They are beating something else. They are beating a Judas Iscariot. I've seen again another comment that Judas Iscariot and so on and so forth. What does that mean to me? That means people are now engaging in first-class blasphemy. If I be a Judas, who is the Jesus? And are we elevating people to that level? I think it's regrettable, and whoever wants to posit himself as a Jesus, I think it is wrong, and corrective time is now. Having said that, I know people were angry. I know people were disappointed by the Supreme Court. Some were happy about it, and so on. It's time to sober up, and it's time to remember that Zimbabwe is bigger than individuals. We have a nation to build. Our people are suffering. Our people don't have jobs. They are now feeling the effects of this pandemic, which has just come to our doorstep. They do not have food. They do not have basic amenities, and we need to fix our country. And we can only fix our country together. But here is an important thing. If you look at America, if you look at Britain, in their political parties, for example, Trump's party, the Republican Party, there are MPs who disagreed with him and openly said that they were not called names, they were not called Judas Iscariot, they were not called dogs, and so on. They were respected. Their opinions were respected. I also saw Jeremy Corbyn being criticized by his own Labour Party MPs. They were not recalled because they criticized him. Now, what my colleagues who are doing otherwise in Zimbabwe are actually communicating to the world is that the democracy barometer, the democracy level for Africa should be set low. Now, let me just say to them, there's nothing African about dictatorship. There's nothing African about unfairness. There is nothing African about not following your own rules. There's nothing African about hate. These are universal wrongs. So let's not set the bar too low for Africa. Political parties must be democratic. They must know that we have constitutions not for decoration. These are real documents that must be obeyed. And this is the point I am trying to make. And I may be making the point badly, but this is the point I'm trying to make.
And then lastly, my last question is in relation with the Supreme Court ruling itself, the timing. Some have raised questions as to why would the Supreme Court sit in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic where people have been told to stay at home and stuff like that. Did you raise any eyebrows about the timing of the ruling?
Absolutely not, because those people who are raising that, and I'm ashamed to say some of them are lawyers, and lawyers who practice in the Supreme Court, they are the first to know that the courts didn't completely close. The Chief Justice issued a circular, and in that circular, he talked about matters that were not going to be dealt with by the courts, trials, applications, and so on. They were not going to be entertained. And if you look at those type of matters, they involve staying for long periods in the courtroom. If you are having a trial and you are questioning people, cross-examining witnesses, and so on. So those were then postponed to a later date. And the Supreme Court made it clear that with regards to urgent matters, it was sitting. It did not outlaw judgments. Judgments, you are going to sit in the court for 3 minutes or 2 minutes for that judgment, or even 1 minute for that judgment. It was not covered. So what the Supreme Court did was that it then delivered its judgment, which obviously was not written on that day. It had been written before. But here is another consideration, sir. Once a court has made a judgment, it has determined rights of the parties affected. And it cannot postpone rights. You cannot postpone rights. If you then give me the right that you are the president, you are the Secretary General. You can't say you are the Secretary General, we postpone that to 2 weeks. No. You have to pronounce it now, and so on. What did anybody lose by the judgment being delivered on that day? Now, here is what people lost. Those who wanted to unleash violence on others were then unable to do it. That is the inarticulate major premise. That is the unsaid, unwritten reason why they are criticizing the timing. It's because there was no opportunity of violence, because there was a lockdown. But if you ask them, what did you lose by having the judgment delivered on that day? What difference was it going to make if this judgment was delivered in June to you, who has lost the case or who has won the case? What difference does it make? So I don't read too much into all of this. We had seen on social media one of the commentators saying that Justice Garwe, I think he wrote about Justice Garwe, suggesting that he was writing the judgment and that somebody had paid him a lot of money to write the judgment. It turns out to be false. It was not Justice Garwe even who wrote that judgment. It was Justice Patel. So that was simple slander on the judge. And for me, that was unfair on the judge.
Senator, thank you so much for giving us your time. We are in a crisis, we are in the pandemic, and of course we had to exercise social distancing. We actually measured. I'm joking, we used our eyes, but it's enough, I'm sure. Yes. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for following newzimbabwe.com's agenda. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Newzim TV. Follow us on Twitter at newzimbabwe.com for these and more programs. We were with the Senator Douglas Mwonzora, the reinstated Secretary General of the Movement for Democratic Change. He said we can use any of those titles. We were finding challenges. We didn't know exactly which one he would want. Thank you so much for following us, and please log on to our website, www.newzimbabwe.com.